Okay, we're here for the daily Forex report for April 29th. We are looking at the U.S. Japanese yen pair first. This pair closed even today, did move higher, did move lower. However, it did form an inside bar, so look for a potential breakout. Definitely look for this pair to hit some resistance if it moves higher up to 94.35, possibly hitting some support and moving down to 93.60. Okay, let's take a look at the Euro USD pair. This pair closed higher, did have a decent range for today. Overall, moving sideways, but definitely has a heavy bias to the downside. Look for it to potentially go as high as 133.34, possibly as low as 131.07. Look for some resistance around 132.75, and look for some support around 131.65. Okay, let's take a look at the pound US dollar pair. This pair moved higher, did not break previous support, is moving sideways overall with a bias that is sideways. Look for it to potentially go as high as 154.12, possibly as low as 150.51. Look for some resistance around 153.75, and look for some support around 152.35. Last but not least, we have the US Swiss. This pair did close lower during today's session. Overall, the bias is still to the upside, moving somewhat sideways. Currently, look for it to potentially go as high as 10983, possibly as low as 10768. Look for some resistance around 10925, and look for some support around 10801. Now, as far as news analysis goes, we have the U.S. releasing their gross domestic product index for the first quarter. That's being released at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. No consensus on that. Previous was 0.5%. We also have the gross domestic product annualized being released tomorrow. Consensus is that it has dropped from the previous quarter, down from 5.6% to 3.4%. Could be negative news for the U.S. dollar. Hopefully, it'll come out a little bit higher than that. We also have at 9:55 a.m. Eastern Time the University of Michigan confidence report, showing for April at least that we have an improvement from 69.5 to 71, which of course would be good news for the U.S. dollar. Now, as far as what I'm looking at during this next session, we do have the U.S. Japanese yen pair has created an inside bar during this last session. Definitely look for a breakout to the upside. I believe we're due. This particular trade could produce about 40 pips or so to the upside if we get a break. So if we get a break here, look to buy and look for it to go on up to this point, and then at that point you'd want to exit. Make sure to use a risk to reward of 1-to-1. I don't believe we'll get a break of the lower band. It's just too far to it. However, if you wanted to do another play you could look at is a break of a trend line, pretty well lined up there, and also then use the low of this previous session. Let me zoom back in. Prior to the inside bar, if we get a very strong day, the market could come down. At this point, look to sell, and then come on down to here, and then look to buy back at that point. So what that looks like from a pip standpoint is about 40 pips. Of course, that would mean we'd have a range day of at least 100 pips, which is definitely doable. So definitely keep an eye on this. Well, that pretty much wraps us up for today. Until next time, this is Jason Fielder. Good trading.